I think the biggest thing has been the integration of 3D design.
Hi there. Hi, Matt. Thanks for
Hi,
joining me
Greg.
today.
Thanks for joining me too.
So I'm just hoping for the people who might not know you, if you could give us a quick introduction about just who you are and what you do right now.
Okay. So my name is Matt or Matthew Witzeling. I don't have a preference. So I'm with the client success team as a client success evangelist, and I joined the SSI team 6 weeks ago or so in an effort to kind of help understand a little bit more what our clients are doing actively with the software and where we can go to help them better utilize what they already have.
I definitely want to touch on what you're doing at SSI right now, but I wanted to kind of jump back and ask you, how did you get involved with shipbuilding? Because I know you've been in the industry for quite a while.
Yeah, it's kind of a long story, actually. Ever since I was a kid, really. I grew up in central Wisconsin. My parents would take us to the Great Lakes for vacation and see the ships. And it's kind of just a culture in that area, and it got me hooked. And so most of the time growing up, I was very much into just ships in general. Later in college, I kind of started to understand shipbuilding. And really from there, I moved to Oregon in 2006 and was working a remote job. And at the time, I had found out about the yard that I had worked in here locally in Portland. And just it was a very happenstance type of series of events. And I ended up with a job. They were looking for a piping machinery designer, and that's how I got in. I just started as a drafter. Shipbuilding had always interested in me, so it just seemed like a great fit. And then, over 14 years, just kept in the industry. It was a very interesting, very challenging job.
What is it about shipbuilding that kept you so interested and kept you, involved in the industry?
I mean, the simple answer is scale. I mean, the sheer size of what you're building, the complexity. It was a very fortunate event. I had joined the team in the shipyard as they were growing their vessel type, their skills, their abilities to build, and so every project was more challenging. And it was really the challenge of being able to build this big steel vessel with all the intricacies and doing it better every time. And that's what just hooked me into the industry. Was there was always a need to do something better. It's a very big industry. It's a very, for lack of a better term, it's a cool industry. And so it always kept me hooked to come back for more.
And so now moving into your new role, kind of in a different part of the industry, what gives you a unique perspective that maybe someone else just working on the software side wouldn't have?
So I had the fortune of spending a lot of time on the shop floor as an engineer. I did a lot of design, a lot of software integrations, but my big focus was to be on the shop floor, to see how things were cut and welded, fabricated, the problems that went with it. And so I have a fairly intimate knowledge of steel construction, right down to the welder level. And so when looking at different aspects of the software, I'm not only looking at it from an engineer's perspective, or maybe just how to use a feature is, okay, well, how does that actually affect the person at the end of the day who is going to be cutting or welding the information coming from ShipConstructor?
Is there any kind of project that you can think of that kind of had some really unique challenges that you had to overcome, and where that shop floor experience can really kind of brought it all together?
Here at SSI, or
just any project you can think of before or now?
I think, as I said earlier, as we were growing our vessel type backlog, we got into more sophisticated projects, and that meant more complexity and more intricacy and smaller spaces, and understanding how things were fabbed, in reality, a series of construction, how things had to fit in a certain order, and understanding the size of parts and the scale of what you are dealing with. Things can weigh several hundred pounds, and you don't realize it when you're using an SSI model, and it has to go in a specific place. So being on the shop floor with the welders, doing some of the installations myself, literally being, dirty up to my elbows, doing stuff. Taking that back to the engineering office and being able to kind of apply it to our designs and engineering principles, and taking some of it back to SSI and saying, hey guys, if we could maybe access this information sooner, it would be really helpful, or maybe it could do something a little bit different. And the SSI team was always very receptive to that.
And so, yeah, being in the industry for so long and working on the shop floor, and you've seen how the software has evolved, how the technology has evolved, and although shipbuilding stays, you're still building ships, the way we've done it has changed. What's been the biggest shift in your opinion in terms of how ships are built today versus 10 years ago, 20 years ago? Yeah.
I think, from my experience, 15 years, almost 2 decades, or, halfway through a second decade here, I think the biggest thing has been the integration of 3D design and what you can do with it, and the power of computing, and the fact that you can bring more and more detailed, complex models in. When I started, we were using ShipConstructor 2005 and AutoCAD, very heavy in the AutoCAD. And we did a very large shift to almost purely ShipConstructor data. And then, not only the 3D, but then taking the information from the Marine Information Model, or the MIM, and distributing that out to the shop, and what other connections can we make with this large repository of data to help drive shop floor processes through an automated method, so we could do more with the same amount of people.
And now, kind of maybe extrapolating that into the future, do you think that just trend towards more detail, more scale is going to continue, or is there going to be some other kind of shift into a different direction that might appear?
I'm not sure. I can see that ships are only getting more complex. The yard I worked in was primarily built barges, but even the barges became very complex due to customer need. And so I think the software is going to keep up, and it's going to have further reaching possibilities into the digital twin, the far reaching life cycle of a vessel. So I think the technology is just going to keep pushing, and I think it's going to be really pushed by people wanting to stay connected with a vessel for its life. And that technological connection back to the yard and the design firm, and all the way through to all the way to the end of life, I think is what people are going to want. They want to have that full visibility of a project, and on top of the technical advancements in shipbuilding, and in technology that's going on the vessels.
Can you elaborate a bit more about what you mean by connected to the ship and connected to the yard? What does that actually look like for you?
So for me, kind of as I was winding down my tenure at the yard, there was an initiative through some of our customers to maybe modernize their way that they looked at a vessel. And so once it was turned over from the shipyard, they owned it, they operated it, they did whatever they wanted to. It was their asset. But if it had to go to dry dock or had to go in for repair, they would call us and, hey, do you have this drawing? Hey, do you have this information on a pump or a valve? And we would have to dig through our archives. And we had a few customers that really wanted to be able to find that stuff on their own. They wanted to be able to go through and have that digital information, so they could go into a dry dock or a shipyard to get repaired, and they would have access to all that information. They weren't at the mercy of the shipyard having their own records held, because it's very expensive to be in dry dock. It's very expensive to be pulled up at a shipyard, and even a few days of delay can cost a lot of money. So they wanted to have that connectivity, the vessel through the ship, through the designer. They wanted that at their fingertips.
And do you think that's going to be a trend that continues on?
I think so, with vessels lasting 25 to 30 years, and the fact that the ability exists. We all deal with everything every day digitally that holds every bit of information we've ever done, let's say on a particular website, or whatever user account you have with whatever particular service. And I think vessel owners are looking at things like that and saying, well, we could do the same thing with this large asset, because there's hundreds of thousands of parts on a ship, and keeping track of that is a daunting task. And I think trending in that direction is the way owners are going to want to take their vessel and take their repairs and their whole life management of a ship.
Yeah, you said we're already doing that in some other areas. Do you think shipbuilding's behind, or is it just different?
It's tough to speak to that. I think it's a very old industry. We build a very manual, manual process in shipbuilding. You have to cut and weld. You're never going to get past that. And so I just think it's an industry with deep roots. There's a lot of people that, in my experience, that are at companies 25, 30 years. Companies treat people quite well. And so you have kind of entrenched ideas. And so you do have to get over some of that. But I think it's just proving out the technology and showing the benefit to the owners is the big challenge for everyone, just to get them to invest. At the scale we're talking here, vessels are very expensive. And the software to manage them has to kind of help cut that cost.
And so moving forward to your role now, what's the goal that you're trying to achieve, and are you looking towards that vision, or?
I think so. I think one, every year producing a vessel gets more expensive, and everyone has a limited budget, and so looking at our clients and saying, you have these particular features, these are your projects, how do we get you guys to utilize this even better? And so, I always loved the challenge of taking what we had, revisiting it potentially, or looking at new things and saying, okay, well, what benefit does this have to us? What can we, take from this and either create a whole new process that we never had before, or how do we improve a current process? And I really enjoy that challenge. And I think coming to SSI and looking at a broader client base and really opening my eyes to, the full spectrum of shipbuilding, and being able to help people with that is a big thing for me. And that's what I want to do in my role is just kind of advance the industry through our software. That's really what I want to get out of this.
Do you have a personal goal for 2021? I know you kind of just started here, but is there anything specific you want to achieve?
I don't know. That's a tough one. I think with everything that's been going on, work goals are, kind of, I wouldn't say they're my primary. I think I want to get back to normal. But I think my 2021 goal is to kind of just to get to know our clients in a different light. I want to really go from being a vendor and, you buy our software to really being a partner, so that they want to call us up and they want to, talk to someone on the client success team, and we want to solve problems together. I think that's kind of my goal, is to help bridge that and just really bring, the years of steel fabrication and shipyard craziness, the kind of the madness that is shipbuilding, bring a different perspective to hopefully kind of gain a little more buy-in with our customers.
And then lastly, just to kind of finish off, I was wondering if you had an idea of what you think is the missing piece in a lot of shipyards or shipyard strategies these days. If there's anything you can kind of nail down.
I think time is, as cliche as that sounds, there's so many features and there's so many aspects and so many moving parts. It's having the time to sit down and think about your process, and really find solutions for your process, and do a real kind of a soul-searching type of exercise on everything you do when you're building a vessel, because a lot of times we're also used to finding a tool to make our life easier. And so we use some of the things that we're reliant on, software programs that are not directly related to SSI to solve certain problems. And I think that, helping our clients understand what capabilities SSI has, to do their processes better.